Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for tuning in. This is Tony, or I am Tony, the Geeky agent from here in Binbrook, Ontario, Canada, the southeasterly most subdivision in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. So we're located about half an hour from downtown Hamilton, half an hour from Welland, about half an hour from Dunnville, and about 35 to 40 minutes away from Brantford. So I'm sort of central to like everybody out this way. A whole bunch of people joining in today, mostly realtor friends of mine from across the country. I do appreciate you all coming in. Even one realtor from San Diego. Hey Maria, how you doing? So we're going to have just a quick chat about sold versus conditionally sold offers. This is the second episode of What the Diff. We're going to try and make this a regular type of series, just informational type stuff for you if you are interested in real estate, at least how it works here in Ontario, specifically in Hamilton, Ontario. So we'll be putting this into a long series or a playlist on YouTube, so you can always go back there and check it out. You can jump down my my Facebook feed. So if you go to my Facebook profile, you can scroll down and you'll be able to see the all the different videos listed there. And we'll try to put it on the business page and do some things like that as well. But for the meantime, it's just a fun little series that we're going to do here. It is fairly casual, so I will mention ahead of time that this is sort of the surface knowledge. This is kind of how it just works on a regular basis, and we can always get into a much more detailed legal description of things. We can bring lawyers on and have a talk with them about what the legal ramifications are. Basically other experts in the field that we can bring on to really do a deep dive into the subject. But what we're going to do is kind of keep this casual, 20 minutes maybe half an hour at the most, just discussing all these different topics. So today is a conditional offer versus a sold property, or a conditionally sold property, and all the things in between there. So basically, how does this work? Hey, Josephine, my friend Josephine from Toronto is there. How you doing? So essentially, most people are familiar with what a sold property means. Once a property is sold, it is done. They've got an accepted offer. It has not actually closed yet, though. So those are two very different things. What we call in real estate terms the completion date, or what most people casually call the closing date, is not the same thing necessarily as the sold date. So when you put in an offer for a property, the way it usually goes, you're working with an agent like myself, and the buyers or the sellers have their own agent, and you kind of sit down at the table, you make an offer, they may counter that offer back to you because they don't like the price, they may not like the completion date or some of the terms and conditions. Maybe you ask them to include the couch for some reason, and they don't want to give you their couch, so they counter it back to you, and it may go back and forth more than a few times depending on how the situation goes. And at some point, though, hopefully the two sides agree on all the terms. That is the price, the completion date, and all the different terms and conditions that can go into an offer. Things like a home inspection condition, mortgage financing, so that the buyer can go and make sure that their mortgage is approved. And there's conditions for things like being able to obtain insurance. Depending on the type of property, you might have conditions there to check the fireplace, which is usually what they call a wet inspection, a WETT inspection. That is different from a home inspection, and usually it's a separate inspector that takes care of that kind of thing. You might also have a septic inspection. If you're out in the country and you're on a septic system, you may have a separate inspection for the septic system, the well water, water pressure tests, water quality tests, all these kind of things. So basically at some point you come to an agreement and you go through and fulfill those conditions. So the buyer goes ahead, has their home inspections, the documents get sent to the bank or the mortgage company to review so they can finalize the mortgage. And at some point, you may have some further negotiations depending on if one of these inspections uncovers something that needs to be discussed. But at some point, these are all taken care of. All the conditions hopefully have been agreed to or waived. And at that point, you have a sold property. So you have a binding agreement between the two sides saying, yep, we're happy with the condition of the house. We're happy with the pricing on both sides. And we're going to proceed from here on out from now until the completion date. So if I submitted an offer today, it's very reasonable that within about 5 to 7 business days from now, usually in the Hamilton area, I'll have what's called a sold property. And usually that is the point where the real estate agent who is listing the property will go and put the actual sold sign on the for sale sign that's out in front of the house. So when you see that sold sign show up on the house, That's where they're at. They've done their home inspection and everything. The property is sold, and now they're basically just waiting until the possession date or the completion date, which could be a few weeks down the road. It might be a couple months down the road, depending on what the two parties have agreed to. So that is what what sold means on a property. Now, you may have heard the term conditionally sold. That is that period in between when you have an accepted offer. So today we submit an offer for a property and we agree on the general terms and pricing. We do all our negotiation, but we still have to do the home inspection. We still have to get our mortgage financing done. So the time between today when the offer is accepted, and generally speaking, a deposit follows right after that within 24 hours. The buyer submits the deposit that was agreed to. At that point, you have an accepted offer. And the time between when the offer is accepted and when all those conditions are cleared, like we just mentioned, we go through all the home inspection and everything like that, that is the conditionally sold period. So you might be told that the property is conditionally sold. So what happens during that period? Well, as we mentioned, the buyers are going through getting all their conditions made, and the sellers can have a choice to make. Now, they can either choose to continually make their property available for viewing, so that even though they have a conditional sale with one buyer, they can allow other people to come and continue to view their property. They can continue to have open houses during that time. Like I said, just get their agent to negotiate with other people, or they can choose, at least in the Hamilton board, to not allow any further showings until such time as the conditional offer has been cleared and or rejected. So it could be conditionally sold allowing showings and conditionally sold not allowing showings. I generally recommend to my sellers to continue to allow showings to occur because the property's not sold. Until the property actually is firmly sold and I put that sold sign on the for sale sign, that property isn't sold. The current buyers may have their home inspection and decide to back out of the deal because they're seeing things in the home inspection that they didn't expect to see. They may not be able to get the financing that they were hoping for, or the bank might do an appraisal of the property that they're buying and determine that it's not worth the amount of money that the buyers were willing to pay. And the buyers cannot come up with the difference in price, the shortfall, and therefore the deal falls apart for that reason. So there's a number of different reasons why the offer that's currently been accepted could fall apart. And in my opinion, you don't want to lose any time on the market. If your house is on the market for sale, you want to continue to allow other people to come in and look at your property so that if something were to go wrong with the conditional offer, you have other people who might be willing to submit an offer in their place. So that also puts a little bit of pressure on the buyers to be serious about what they're doing and hurry up and make a decision because we have other people who are still coming to view the property who might want to jump on it. Also, if you're negotiating, so if you do have a home inspection, if I'm representing the seller and we have a home inspection and I have buyers who are trying to negotiate the price, either for something that's reasonable or maybe for something that's not being really reasonable, and they're trying to get either a reduction in price or a repair done, if I know that I have 2 or 3 other interested parties who just saw the property yesterday who might also be willing to submit an offer, that kind of gives us a little bit of leverage, put some pressure on the buyers to negotiate in good faith at least and come to an agreement with us. Now, during that period, if I am working for a buyer and we go to see a property and find out that it's been conditionally sold, we still have the opportunity to negotiate with the seller. So what would happen in that case is that if we go see the property and we like it, and we decide, hey, we want to put an offer on this property, we know that they have another offer pending, but we want to put ours in there just in case that one falls apart, you can put in what is we normally or casually refer to as a backup offer. So we would actually submit an offer to the sellers. We would negotiate pricing, we negotiate terms just as you would on a regular offer, but it would have to include a condition that this offer, even if we accepted all the terms and everything like that, is only valid if the seller gets released from the first offer that they accepted. So as soon as that offer, if it falls apart, then our offer goes into effect, and now we have a conditional offer with the sellers, and we get to proceed with our home inspection and other conditions that we have in place. So in a very busy market, or if you've seen a house that you really, really like, and you just don't want to miss that opportunity, but somebody has beat you to the punch, you still have the opportunity to do that backup offer. And many agents use that strategy very effectively in order to get their people properties Because a lot of times, especially even when you're in a competition, so you've got an evening where there's like 5 to 10 offers. Like this evening, I'll be submitting an offer on a property where there are 32 other offers currently registered on that property. So anybody that's telling you that the Hamilton real estate market is slow is a little bit out to lunch. Some neighborhoods are still on fire. I'm literally submitting an offer competing against 32 other offers that'll be there this evening as well. So Chad Curry's in there. How you doing, Chad? Hopefully we'll meet one day. So basically that's it. You can do that backup offer, and that's the difference between a sold and conditionally sold. There is one other type of offer that's worth mentioning, and that's one that is sold with an escape clause. So what that means, if your agent or anybody ever tells you that, is that the people who have purchased that property also have to sell their property. So what normally happens is they'll negotiate an offer, they'll do their home inspection and their financing and all that stuff, and that's usually done in the first, say, 5 to 6 business days after the acceptance of the offer, but they have a home to sell. So what they'll do is they'll put in what's called a sale of buyer property, or a SBP condition or SOBP condition, depending on who you're speaking to. And that means that they have an accepted offer, they've cleared all their conditions except one final condition that says that the buyer needs to sell their property. Generally speaking, the seller will give the buyer a certain amount of time. In the Hamilton area, about 30 days, 3 weeks to 30 days is typical. So we'll give you a month to sell your property. But during that time, and it's conditional upon that. So if the buyer for some reason can't sell their property in that amount of time for a price that they agreed to with someone else, then the deal falls apart and the seller still has to continue selling their home. So because of that, there is what's called an escape clause. So the seller will allow the buyer to go off and sell their property as long as the buyer allows the seller to continue to show the property, continue to negotiate with other people for an offer, almost the same way as a backup offer. But in this case, what happens is a potential buyer could go to that seller, negotiate an offer, have an accepted offer with the condition that, again, the seller gets released from a previously existing arrangement that they have with the first buyer. So the seller, usually escape clause is for 24 to 48 hours. So what happens is the seller will go to the first buyer and say, look, I've got a second offer that's come in. I'd like to deal with these people. We've agreed to terms. We've agreed to pricing and stuff. You, as the first buyer, almost have what's called a first right of refusal. It's not exactly that, but it's kind of works that same way. So I'm going to give you 24 to 48 hours, whatever was agreed to originally, to decide. Do you want to waive all your conditions and make your offer for my property a firm offer? Or do you want to release me from that offer so that I can continue to sell my property to the second buyer? There's a lot of reasons why a buyer may or may not say yes. If the buyer is really confident that they're going to sell their home, or they have resources that make them able to purchase that property without selling their home, they may agree to waive all their conditions and make that a firm sale. However, if the buyer is concerned that they may not be able to sell their home in time, or they may not be able to sell their home for the amount of money that they want, and they cannot purchase that property without the funds that they need from the sale of their home, in that case the buyer would release the seller from that original agreement so the seller can go and sell the property to the second buyer that had showed up. And that buyer will go through whatever conditions they agreed to. So they may have had a home inspection condition, they may have had a financing condition, they may have even had a sale of property condition. Maybe the seller was more confident in these people selling their home, or they offered more money, or a shorter closing date, or whatever it would have been that they agreed to. But that's called bumping an offer. So that second buyer has come in and bumped the first buyer away, and now they can proceed to negotiate and deal with the seller, go through and clear their conditions, and purchase the home. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them below. I don't see too many questions there. I see my cousin Chantel from Florida, who's a brand new real estate agent down in Florida, and Keith Roy, who is just at Disney World. So maybe you're down there too. I don't know. Maybe you guys should chat. Ron James, Steve Coten, Eileen is there, chat. All people I know, all real estate agents. Hopefully I've educated all you real estate agents about what a sold versus a conditionally sold property is. Again, this is a very casual chat just as to the mechanics of how this works on a day-to-day basis. We can always get into a much deeper legal discussion, look at things like liabilities and all that kind of stuff. And if you're interested in that kind of thing, please feel free to drop me a message. And here's where you can get me. So I'm going to go through my regular routine right here and let you know that this has been Remax Geek TV. This is Tony the Geeky Agent and my version of Remax Geek TV. If you are looking for me online, you can find me on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram. I'm also on Snapchat, Twitter, Pinterest, and Tumblr, but Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram is where the bulk of my content ends up. So if you want to contact me directly, though, please text or call me. 289-237-9896. You can also email me, tony@thegeekyagent.com. It's as easy as that. Or if you're looking for me in other places online, you can always go to my website at thegeekyagent.com. I try to keep it up to date with all the videos that we do, properties for sale, information for buyers, information for sellers, mortgage calculators, just regular content there to keep you interested, keep you fun, and teach you a little bit about real estate. So please feel free to check it out. If you go to hamiltonlifestylesearch.com, that'll direct you to the home search portion of thegeekyagent.com. And that is pretty much it for me today. So it is actually finally a nice sunny day here in Binbrook. I am off, like I said. I have an offer presentation in about an hour from now, competing against 32 other offers for this property in the Niagara region. That's all I'll tell you. So yeah, the real estate market, it's gotten busy again. It was delayed. I believe what we're having is a delayed spring market. We had really bad weather in January and February. We had rate increase announcements. We had changes to the mortgage rules. All that kind of stuff delayed the spring market, but didn't kill the spring market because it's here and it's going guns a-blazing. In certain neighborhoods, you're back to where we were last year in fighting over 5, 10, 15 offers on a property. And this is in the Hamilton, Burlington area. I heard in Toronto for the condo market, it's even worse. So we're back to that point where we were, despite the increases in rates and new government regulations and rule changes and that sort of thing. So if you want to chat about real estate, I'm always here for you. I do love you. Thank you for tuning in. I love each and every single one of you. If you're watching on YouTube, look around here, wherever, for the subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. I was going to say emails, but videos is what I'm talking about. And I hope you have a great rest of the day. And as always, I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.